With all the information we've covered so far on plugins and real-time processing, it's easy to see how important this is to the entire concept of a DAW workstation. It allows you to work in a real-time manner, as you would in a studio based on hardware components. However, this real-time power comes at a cost. The main processor in your computer is the most important aspect of plugin processing. The more effects and instruments you use, the more CPU power it requires, until eventually you run out. In this movie tutorial, we are going to discuss how to use the audio mixdown feature to capture or print your audio and instrument tracks with effects as a means of easing the load on your CPU when your projects start to grow larger and larger. If you remember from the audio mixdown movie tutorial, the option to render an audio file is found in the main file menu under the Export category. The dialog box that appears gives you all the necessary options you need to create a full mixdown or individual mixdowns of any channels that are present within the VST channel mixer. The main options you will be using when capturing audio or instrument tracks with effects are the output channel selection and the import to option. The other options should generally match the format of your main project so that your file formats, sample rates, and bit depth stay consistent throughout the project. The import to options flag Nuendo to import the newly rendered file into the pool and then automatically create a new audio track and place the audio exactly in the same timeline location as the original audio events. So there is no need to re-import the files and spend time placing them exactly into the same location within your project. If you have a MIDI sequence track that is controlling a virtual instrument plugin, then the process is exactly the same. However, be sure to take note of the output channels of the instrument and not the MIDI tracks. The instrument's output channels will show up in the output list. Let's take a look at exactly how this works within an actual project. Here I have a nice synth groove coming from Native Instruments' FM7 virtual instrument plugin. I also have a few insert plugins inserted to add a little extra flavor to the sound. However, I'm pretty much done with this, and I really don't plan to change or tweak the sound any further, so I want to go ahead and render this as an audio track. First, we'll set our left and right locator ranges to cover over the event or events we want to render. Next, I'll choose Audio Mixdown from the main file menu. Then, we first set our directory to where Nuendo will render the file. It's very important that you pay attention to where your files are being rendered so that you don't lose them. I always find it best to simply render the audio into the main audio folder of your project, along with the other audio files. Once we set the directory, we'll name the file. Next, we'll make sure the pool and audio track options are enabled. Next, I'll move down to the output section and I'll choose the FM7 channel output. This is very important to make sure that what you render only includes the FM7 instrument channel instead of the entire mix. And then hit save. Now notice what happened. Nuendo rendered the audio, and now we have a new audio track created with the output of the FM7 instrument. Now that we have created the audio track, we can either turn off the FM7 instrument or mute the MIDI track. This will help reduce our CPU load since the sound will now come from the audio track instead of from the FM7. Let's go ahead and do the same for the drum track I have here. We'll set the locator ranges, then initiate the audio mixdown function, choose our directory and name our file, choose the drum track output channel, and set the pool and audio track options. Then click Save. Done. Now I'll move the new drum track right up next to the original drum track, and you can see it's exactly the same. But if we take a listen, you'll hear the new drum track has all the effects in it. Now I can go and disable all the insert plugins that are used on the original drum track. Now in most situations, since you no longer need the original MIDI or audio track, you could just simply delete them. However, you may find that for some reason down the road, you may need to make a change to the sound or change a note you've sequenced via MIDI. For this and other reasons, I always like to keep the original tracks in case I need to turn back to them. However, after rendering a few files, things can start to get real messy on the screen and make it harder to manage and navigate through your mix. So here's a trick that works really well. Nuendo has what are called folder tracks. These are nothing more than placeholders that allow you to place tracks within them for organizational purposes. So I'll go ahead and create a folder track. We'll call this folder track Disabled Tracks, since we'll use it to hold any tracks that we have already rendered and no longer need. Once the track is created, I will go to the audio track and choose the option to disable the track. This ensures that there's absolutely no CPU power consumed for this track, no matter what automation or effects it may contain. Then I'll simply place it into the folder track. Now I'll mute the FM7 MIDI track and place it into the folder track as well. There, both tracks are now out of sight and out of mind. If I ever need to go back to the originals for any reason, all I have to do is open the folder track and re-enable the tracks as needed, make the edits, re-render it, and then disable it again. So in this tutorial, we've learned how important the audio mixdown function is for the purpose of managing the overall CPU load on your computer system as you continue to add more and more effects or virtual instrument plugins. We've also covered ways to help keep track of what you're rendering and ways to save the original material in case you need to turn back to correct something. If you'd like to learn more about the audio export function, be sure to check out the Exporting Mixes tutorial in the mixing topic.